Kenya is deep into an election year, and we must begin to ask hard questions, to invite conversations and invite brutal honesty, because it is these conversations that will ensure we have a peaceful election, we have a country today and tomorrow. Today, I want us to have a conversation around what I think could be pushing the country into dangerous territories. I begin by asking the question, is Deputy President William Samoei Ruto on the road to introducing socialism into this country? Much more fundamentally, could William Samoei Ruto be pushing this country towards a revolution? These are not empty questions. And they are questions from a Kenyan who loves his country and from a Kenyan who invites fellow Kenyans, both locally and the diaspora, to have a conversation around these weighty matters. When William Samoei Ruto introduced the hustler narrative, I flagged it out and I said it was a dangerous narrative. I said it was dangerous because when you pit brother against brother on account of one brother having something small which the other brother doesn't have, you are on the path of destroying your country. When you divide a country along class lines, along the haves against the have-nots, the country is heading the wrong direction. The hustler narrative was about dynasties. The narrative was that the misery that Kenyans were facing, and indeed there are problems in this country. The problems we are facing are caused by dynasties. And at that time, the dynasties were defined to be the political families of this country. But I did say, initially it will be Raila, Uhuru, Moi, and maybe Mudavadi. But as the thing moves and morphs, it will get to a point where the dynasty will be seen as anybody who is causing the pain of the people who are suffering. I then said at that time that the dynasty will be taken to mean anybody who is even driving a small car. You'll be the cause. And when young men are rioting and they throw stones, they will not know that you are a poor Kenyan, maybe driving a vehicle bought to you by your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Maybe a car you are paying by a loan. Maybe a car you inherited from your mother. Maybe one you just bought with 300,000 shillings with a circle loan. They will not know that. And this thing could move to a very dangerous place and it could destroy your country. I think the message was clear and the narrative was busted. Happily for us, it was a bubble. But these fellows were crafty enough to move it and camouflage it. They came up with the bottom up. The bottom up was the hustler narrative of dynasties versus the rest, put in a capsule called bottom up. Indeed, like every other Kenyan, I've had a problem trying to understand the meaning of the bottom up. They themselves are not even able to tell us what bottom up is. The most dramatic failure was from Alice Wahome on a TV show where she couldn't tell us what the bottom up was. It was up, none of them. So like every other Kenyan, I've been trying to understand what is this bottom up. I've only had billions being thrown from top to down. I've heard people talking about fuliza. The country is fulizering by way of loans. Mwananchi anafuliza hapa chini. I've heard of Weta the Fifth from the bottom-up group talking about when you vote, you are voting for bei ya unga chini, bei ya mkate chini. Ukipiga kura yako, bei ya maziwa chini. That's Weta the fifth. But that riddle was solved for me when I appeared on a TV show with an MP from UDA. And this is what he said. He said Uhuru and his people do not want to see small people benefiting. So they said that according to them, they would wish to make the boda rider be able to buy a motorcycle. And he said, and with the time, such a young people will then own a petrol station. Then I said, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. And therefore this country must ask themselves, are we prepared for socialism? There's nothing wrong with socialism, if you ask me. But are we prepared? And will it be the kind of socialism that will be beneficial to society? I know scholars will jump on me and talk about my failure to understand what socialism is. I will also ask them to remember that according to Karl Marx, even the socialism he had in mind, the material conditions that were necessary for socialism to take root had not been met by the time we had socialism. In fact, the place where socialism started was one of the most backward countries. Socialism had to take place in a country that was industrialized, where the workers were clearly a defined group. So let nobody lecture me because I understand. Now, I say this is socialism, but I will also qualify it is crude and argue that it may even be dangerous for this country. Because if you say you want to support the bottom, and you are presenting it in such a way, the small people down there doing Nduthi will become owners of capital. You transfer ownership from the top to the bottom, because then if all the Nduthi people own petrol stations across the country, you are therefore jettisoning Shell out of Kenya. You are saying Total should not be operating. Well, it will not be operating. There is no way the Nduthi operators, the boda operators, can run their petrol stations across the country, and then Shell has an existence in this country. And then Total has an existence in this country. The new Rubies has an existence in this country. You are saying because the small people are flizzering, you want to give them money instead of them borrowing from Shylocks and from banks, and you are telling us where those banks come from, who owns them. So you are saying we will therefore enable the vast majority of Kenyans in their millions to have money to do their business without resorting to the banks. In a sense, what you are saying, that the state will oversee and superintend over a move into socialism. You are also saying, ipso facto, that the banks will have to reorganize. The banks as we know it, the banking system as we know it. We are talking about Mama Mbogas. As we give them the billions, we are therefore seeing them taking over the supermarket chains at that lower level. And the capitalist in that industry is facing extinction. Now, look, I leave it to Kenyans to interrogate whether that kind of socialism can work, and if indeed it is good. Because socialism is not bad. Today in the world, there isn't a single country that doesn't have some form of capitalism, one way or the other. The best example, of course, are welfare states. Social democrats. There are states where the rich are taxed to make life bearable for the poor. Best example is in Sweden and the Scandinavian countries, Finland also. Now, what am I saying here? I am saying we are having a mongrel, to use William Ruto's word, a mongrel of an economic system. An economic system that seeks to disrupt, to dismantle the political economy in this country as we know it. Because those countries that support the bottom through welfare arrangements are countries with refined investment, where the investors are making enough money, enough business for them to give sufficient to government, for government to support the bottom. We are talking about political economies where, because investors are doing very well, they have employed a good number of citizens of those countries, and they pay them so well that those citizens are taxed highly. From high salaries, you get high taxes. And those taxes are able to make a mother be paid every time she has a child. To ask the father even to stay home for 3-6 months as the government feeds you, as you take care of your baby. And they are all of various forms, from the smallest support to the hugest support in the Scandinavian countries. Now, ask yourself, so you are William Samoei Ruto. You are now the president of a country. And you are destroying the top. You are sending the captains of industry packing. And indeed, you have not had very good words for them. You are saying the rich are gathering in hotels to give somebody power to protect themselves and their riches. So you have no love lost for the top. Now, when you destroy the top, you want to ask yourself, are you in a position to organize the bottom, to sustain an economy? That is a conversation we must have. And it must be a brutally honest conversation, because it's about this country. I want to leave it there, but not before asking William Samoei Ruto to know something and to do something. Not before asking Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta to know something and to do something. I ask William Samoei Ruto to know that you could be courting disaster. The promises you make to the young men, as president, you will not meet them. Find out about the Orange Revolution. As a president, you will not meet the promises you are making. The socio-economic and political arrangement of this country, whether you disrupt it or not, cannot make you do what you are saying. You have armies of young men disillusioned and rioting. Don't promise young people maize flour, unga itakuwa 50 bob. Because if you become president, since you will not do it, even if you come up your socialism with all price controls, you will not price control unga to 40 shillings. You will not. Those are the realities. You come from maize growing regions. The farmers want to be paid more. How do you explain a situation where farmers would want to be paid more, and yet maize flour will be 30 shillings, unga? It's not possible. So you are creating a class of young people that will cause trouble in this country. But I also suspect something. And I want Kenyans to have a conversation around this. Could William Samoei Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza UDA brigade be aware that they are not going to win this election, which is most likely the case? And therefore, they want to prepare people who they will have on their side as they agitate. I leave it to you. I now address Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta. If you win government, as indeed you are most likely going to win Raila Odinga, you should be aware that these young men that who are being prepared can cause trouble. So what do I want you to do? I want you, if you know you are going to win, to do two things. One, campaign so well, strategize so well, that you win with numbers nobody can dispute. Remember, disputed elections across the world are always elections where the difference between the winner and the loser is too narrow. Make sure you do not take us to 2007, Raila Odinga and your brother Uhuru Kenyatta. Number two, Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. Uhuru because you are president, Raila because you want to be president. Ensure the current perception in the country that William Ruto is unassailable is defeated. I've tried to look at politics in this country. I've tried to find a path that William Ruto could use to presidency. I don't see it. I've cracked the numbers. I don't see Ruto winning. And I suspect Ruto knows it. But you are doing a poor job because elections and politics are about perception. Raila Odinga, you are not doing enough to change that perception. And therefore you must move into that. But I must finally finish with William Samoei Ruto. You are a young man in politics. Do not prepare the country for a revolution, which will not be a well-defined revolution. Merely chaos. Don't. Why? You need this country. You are young. The person you are competing has seen it all. One of these days, find time, William Samoei Ruto, and sit down with Raila Odinga. Ask him. And if you can't find it within your heart to sit down with Raila Odinga, just study his history. And I want you to learn something from Raila Odinga. Fight like Raila Odinga, who knows there is Kenya which is bigger than him, who also knows there is always tomorrow. In 2007, Raila was pushed to swear himself in, but he looked at the country. He looked at his age and he knew there was tomorrow. That is how he left it there. You are there with him and you know what I'm talking about. In 2017, after the disputed election, during the resistance movement, between October and January, February, Raila was pushed into things. At one time, when people were being asked to boycott goods and services from certain companies, the young men within the region that had been mapped as an Asa region, when we were talking about secession, they were asking for permission to uproot certain people and certain companies. He said no. They wanted to remove Uhuru's portrait and put his in offices. He said no. They pushed him to swear himself, a parallel swearing in when Uhuru was being sworn in. He knew the danger. He said no. They kept pushing him. And he kept saying no. Because Raila knew that could break the country. And finally, when he took the oath, it was a time the anger had been healed by time. Anger had been healed by time. Some of the generals within the fight had gone separate ways. Miguna, Ndi. And he took that oath as the final step, the final thing you needed to do to quell the people, to make them feel fulfilled and ready to fight another time. And therefore, William Samoei Ruto, the socialism you intend to introduce will be chaotic. The revolution you might bring about, knowingly or unknowingly, may destroy a country which you might as well become president of in 2032, 2027, 2037. You are young enough, and by 2037, you may be younger than Raila is today. Think about your country. Think about self. Be ambitious. Want to be president. Want to be president bad enough to campaign badly, seriously. But think about tomorrow. Think about your country. Because every one of us needs this country.